Two to 300 Ghanaians, fighters, have already been integrated into some jihadist outfits across the sub-region. We're talking Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger. These terrorist groupings have already infiltrated Ghana, and one Ghanaian from Karaga was recently involved in the attack on French forces in Mali in June last year. There also happens to be, per that latest report we have, an active recruitment in mining areas across the northern belt of the country. And per the latest report that we have from the Konrad Adenauer Stiftung Foundation, we have a lot on our hands to deal with as far as terrorism is concerned. Shortly, we'll be giving you a scope of the terrorist activity in recent times across the sub-region. But first, let me welcome you aboard as we kickstart our big stories. We start by talking about terrorism, and joining us for that conversation, Mumuni Mukhtar. He's Executive Director, West Africa Center for Counter-Extremism. We also have Adib Sani, Executive Director, Center for Human Security and Peace Building. He joins the conversation as well. Mr. Sani, a very good morning to you, sir.
Good morning, and good morning to my brother Mukhtar.
All right. So as and when that image is ready, we'll splash it on the screen just to give you an idea of the terrorist activity across the sub-region, very close to us in recent times, and how it has come virtually knocking on our doors in recent times. We have been fortunate not to have had a terrorist attack in this country, but moving forward with how close it is coming to us, about 9 kilometers, what should we be doing? We'll be looking at that as and when it is available. But for you, Adib Sani, looking at this latest report from the Konrad Adenauer Stiftung Foundation, what picture does it paint for you? Because definitely, if you look at the scope, you look at the trajectory, the kitabis and the recruitment we're talking about, 200 to 300 Ghanaians, and how some of them are supposedly coming back. They train them, they come back into the country to basically proselytize in a religious sense, to come and recruit. What do you make of it?
Well, I remember I had access to this report at the draft stage. In fact, before it came out, and I have quite a bit of a relationship with those behind it, particularly the lead for pro-mediation. So I knew about it. I had studied it extensively before it came out. And I'm not surprised because the threat has been there for some time now. Indeed, considering our proximity to the Cascade, the northern Ivory Coast, Burkina Faso, and Togo, it is worrisome because the report states categorically that Ghana has become sort of a withdrawal point for these terrorists who are able to effectively stage attacks in these countries, then conveniently cross the border into Ghana, reorganize, and perhaps go back to stage another round of attacks. And so it is not surprising when we see them making, movements, and you see national security writing to various security agencies on the ground to the effect that they've seen some movements of persons. These are those persons who are perhaps reorganizing. But a lot of questions has also been asked. I mean, despite all of these threats we face, how come we haven't been attacked? And, it's not...
For you, what is the reason? Is it luck? Is it anything our officers are doing, military, police, and all of that, customs, immigration? Is it because we appear to be, having some sort of campaign that if you see something, say something, and all of that? I mean, what is it that is working for us? Or is it just that we've not, excited them or been that much of an incentive for them to, come here?
Well, Ghana has been part and parcel of a number of efforts aimed at countering terrorism in West Africa, particularly. We have, the Ankara initiative that is headquartered here, made up of Ghana, East Neighbors, Benin, Mali, and of course Niger. So definitely we have touched their tail. and they might want to come after us. Besides, a lot of these groups, which are mostly Al-Qaeda and ISIS affiliated, their leaders have, told them to go after Western targets, and they are so-called collaborators. So once you have anything to do with the West, you are a collaborator. So it is safe to say that Ghana is a collaborator. We have some deficits, including porous borders. In 2019...
So when you say, just hold on for me. I know you use these terms a lot, but I want us to break them down for the ordinary person watching us. When you say Ghana is a collaborator, so to speak, what does it really mean? Like in a simple sense.
Good. A collaborator in the sense of the terrorist perspective. If you have anything to do with the West, whether trade, commerce, security cooperation, what it means is you are helping the West fight them. And let's not forget that we have a defense cooperation agreement with the Americans, and you know what that means.
Right. That is true.
The use of part of our airport. And of course, Ghana is a springboard to fighting the terrorists. So we are also a potential. You see, the thing is, terrorists don't just wake up and decide to go after countries. They should have a motive, they should have the means, they should have the opportunity. Okay, so the motive might be Ghana taking part in sub-regional efforts, Ghana collaborated, so to speak, with Western countries to fight them. Okay, they have the means because they have the money, they have the weapons, and the opportunity is maybe inadvertently the strength we are giving them. Our border security is a major issue. According to one up in 2019, even though there are 14 approved border crossings between Ghana and Burkina Faso, a count of the illegal ones turned out to be well over 189. And these terrorists take advantage of these smuggling routes to traffic weapons. They are able to traffic even humans. And that is really a major cause for worry. However, I think based on my analysis and study of the issue, and of course, experiences, I think Ghana is being used for something else. Okay, and the fear is Ghana might outlive its youthfulness, then we become a potential target. Let's not forget that earlier this year there was a UN report submitted specifically to the UN Security Council that pointed to a terrorist warehouse in Ghana, Togo, and in Benin. So Ghana has become more like a transit point. Ghana has become where they keep their warehouses, where they regroup, where they recruit. Okay, so we are serving a different purpose. And even though I cannot also run away from the fact that our security services are doing a lot, but I don't think it's enough.
It's interesting. You seem to contradict yourself. You say, though you cannot overlook the fact that our security forces are doing enough, yet you say they are not doing enough. So I'm a bit confused here. But especially when you talk about these warehouses that are even being set up by, jihadist groups and recruitment drives and all of that, it obviously means there are a lot of pieces in this jigsaw puzzle that are missing in terms of dealing with the situation, right?
Okay, so what I meant to see, perhaps it was a matter of semantics. What I meant to say is our security services are doing a lot, but it's not enough. Okay, example, in Togo, they are doing it from a two-pronged approach. Okay, one, they have militarization of the area in which a lot of deployment has been done, and also there's an interministerial body to counter the threat of terrorism that is really working closely with the communities there. But in Ghana, I think most of it has to do with the militarization aspects. We are ignoring some fundamental issues on the ground, including lack of amenities to the population, youth unemployment, poverty, and all that, which I must say is the major issue so far as the recruitment drive is concerned. We need to improve intelligence, I must say. Still, these terrorists are able to operate under the radar without being noticed by the security services. There's a need for collaboration, and this is extremely key. If not, the trouble would be we'll be doing our bit, we'll be doing the best we can, but pay for somebody else's inefficiency. And I'll give you a specific example. In recent times, we have seen the number of prison breaks in Nigeria. We are in Ghana, but it's going to affect us So what invariably that means is we are paying for somebody else's inefficiency. We are paying for Nigeria's inefficiency so far as their prison management is concerned, because a lot of these inmates find their way into Ghana. So with collaboration, we put everybody on the same page. But the splintered nature of the collaboration, I must say, is also not helping. We have Accra Initiative, G5 Sahel, MINUSMA, Joint Task Force, Operation Bakan, Operation this, Operation that. But if we are able to come together under a single umbrella, okay, and
Right.
have every mate, I'm sure we'll be doing a lot to stem the tide. If not, I mean, we might have spillover effects, which I must say is occurring, particularly between Burkina Faso and Mali, and Burkina Faso, Ivory Coast, Burkina Faso, Togo, and it's also likely to affect those of us in Ghana.
All right, I'll be calling for that image that I was speaking of earlier, Adi, for us to take a look at, because obviously I don't know whether we are awake enough to the threat. Because again, I reiterate, we've never been attacked, and you know, sometimes that also has its downsides, because you don't have the experience of knowing how this goes. But you look at what we have on your screens, and you'd realize that all the way from Benin leading into Togo and spilling over into Ghana, at least not yet, but look at that figure, very close to the edge. I'll be getting there. But you would notice that on the 9th of November, 2021, there was an attack, and that was suspected JNIM or Ansarul Islam militants attacking an army position in Salwaga, and casualties were unknown. And Salwaga, by the way, is within Togo. Then you have the 11th May 2022 incident, an attack on an army position in Benkankadi. At least 8 soldiers were killed. But it gets closer to us. 14th and 15th of July 2022, unidentified assailants reportedly kill dozens of villagers in Blamonga, Bembole, and other villages in Togo. Let's go up north a bit, because right in neighboring Burkina Faso, on the 15th of June 2022, and look at the trajectory. An unidentified armed group attacks military forces in the village of Gulungusi. Casualties are unknown. And then the closest that we've come to, the 9th and the 10th of July 2022, an aircraft accidentally targets and kills 7 teenagers in Magba. And all of this, you know, happening within the sub-region from November 2021 through to July 2022. That paints quite a staggering picture. Basically, if you look at the last image, the terrorists are knocking on our very doors. Your reaction to that, Adib Sani, because I keep saying that, look, we know they are here. They've just not engaged in any activity that we would call a terrorist attack. But again, with all of this knowledge, have we woken up to the presence of the security threats you spoke of? Nigeria has had a lot of jailbreaks. I think recently about 64 jihadists made away. We have the situation in Mali with their military regime. Burkina Faso with its own problems in terms of dealing with insurgents. And once they are unable to deal with them, the spillover goes where? To Ghana.
Absolutely, in Ghana. And the unfortunate truth is, but before I come to that, let me correct myself. I mentioned there were 14 migration points between Ghana and Burkina Faso. There are actually 44 as of 2019, according to WANEC, but there were over 189 illegal crossings. So with specificity to the points you're raising, I think it is worrying because at the point we felt that this was a Western affair and terrorists should have nothing to do with us. But by the day, it's becoming closer and closer to us. And according to Brian Jenkins, if you study terrorism and the name Brian Jenkins is not mentioned, then I'm not sure you studied terrorism. He said that now the terrorists want more people dead and more people scared. Their level of lethality has grown over the period, the savage nature of their attacks and their expansion by the by the way, is also growing. But there seems to be an inconsistency here. Countries have committed a lot of resources, military resources, to fighting terrorism with cooperation from their Western allies. I mean, lately we see a lot of American instructors, British instructors, and even French coming in to help their counterparts in West Africa, so we are able to effectively fight the terrorists. However, most interestingly, we are seeing a growth. We are seeing that they are coming closer and closer to the coastal area. So it tells us one thing, that there is no military solution to the fight against terrorism. And I repeat, there is no military solution to the fight against terrorism. In as much as we need a bit of the whip, I think the major focus should be on addressing these structural issues on the ground. For example, in Burkina Faso, there are a lot of ungoverned spaces in which government is not able to provide services. These terrorist groups fill the vacuum, impose taxes, are able to provide services that the central administration is not able to provide, such as water, such as jobs, and even sanitation, activities. Okay, so for Ghana, we are at the crossroads, and for a very long time, we were sort of in a state of denial until my good brother Wasi Mutar came out with a report that got everybody talking. And all of a sudden, National Security Ministry then decided that, yes, indeed, the threat is there. They are coming. Perhaps we've hidden it from you all this while. And so if you see something, say something. Okay. And I have problems with that, because I've always said that government.
Do you think we waited too long, especially on the back of what you're saying? Basically, we knew, but maybe we were afraid to put it out there that this is happening in the sub-region and that we're at risk.
Absolutely, it came too late. A bit too late.
It came too late. All right. Hold for me, Adib. Let me bring in Mumuni Mukhtar, Executive Director, West Africa Center for Counter-Extremism. Mukhtar, a very good morning to you. Thank you for joining the conversation.
Hello, good morning to you, and good morning to our listeners.
Right. It is clear from this latest report, and it's something we've known, we have porous borders. Now we're being told that 200 to 300 of our own have been integrated into these jihadist cells. Some of them have gone out, and now they have been tasked to come back to different villages across the country to proselytize, religious proselytizing, of course, jihadist or a terrorist proselytizing as well, to spread the word and recruit people. We also see that there's an active engagement up north in gold-producing areas. Why is this important? Because across, when you look at Burkina Faso and others, the Savannah region especially shares borders with some of these areas, and it's becoming increasingly worrisome. What is the picture this paints for you?
Well, this is a report that should worry all of us. But it's a report that we need to look at further. 200 and above. These are very, very serious figures we are talking about. And we need to interrogate the report further to really establish what this really is and what it means for us. You're talking about borders, porous borders, talking about mining sites and areas of vulnerabilities. We've always known this. Our authorities and people who work in this sector have always known that these are very vulnerable spots or target areas. But in terms of this report and its content, who are these individuals we're talking about? Where are they coming from? How were they recruited? And how were they able to get back into the system successfully? We need to interrogate that further. Other than that, it would just be a part of a mix of things we're looking at in terms of the panic and alarm that it means for all of us. What we should be looking at is, what is the reality of the threat to our country, and what are the measures we have taken or we are taking in dealing with the threat? And I've heard my brother make a lot of very valuable points in terms of our response to dealing with violent extremism or the threat of terrorism to our country. We have been very, very slow to act in terms of preparedness, in terms of measures from the point or the perspective of state. We have only recently seen states fully acknowledging that this is a reality, this is a threat that is very close to us, and that we needed to be doing something more than just talking about it. But even that, we are yet to see the full force of the state in terms of the measures, in terms of mobilizing the support of the local population and civil society to be able to come out with measures against that, in terms of what we call building resilience against the threat of terrorism or violent extremism on our soil. And that we haven't seen enough. We've risked being ambushed by time. This is a threat that has been moving towards us in a very long time. It's been that since 2015, 2016, when we had the attacks in Côte d'Ivoire and Burkina Faso. And yet, we haven't seen any direct and practical state measures, especially dealing with the local population. Luckily, we have all come to acknowledge that it's a reality. It is something we cannot hide or pretend that is a remote threat to us. And so we need the states to go beyond see something, say something, and really practicalize measures. As we speak now, there is a national framework for country and preventing violent extremism and terrorism. There has to be national action plans to put that framework into action. We haven't seen any any national action plans. That has to be done to ensure that all of us get involved in helping build resilience against terrorism.
Pardon my interjection. As you speak about national action plans, something comes to mind. You're talking about ambushing, the fact that we are practically getting encircled or surrounded by these terrorists. Then the national action plans. You recall the last time when we started hearing from the National Security Minister, Albert Kandapa, sounding, the warning that we could face a terrorist threat. We spoke about these self-same issues that, look, we need a national action plan. Even churches and mosques, how they are supposed to go about what they go about. It shouldn't be left to each church or mosque or religious group or, whatever, to handle their own business or decide we're going to do it this way. Up until now, we don't have that national plan. What does that really mean? I mean, are we taking this seriously enough?
I think in theory, everyone knows, those who work in this sector, that we are facing a very, very difficult threat, and a threat that we cannot or must not joke with. What we are missing is action around it. There's a lot of delay in terms of the things we need to be doing, and terrorists don't wait. And so we need to be fast, quick, and adequate in our measures, and that we are not seeing happen from the state level. The national action plans we're talking about, let's look at it on paper. It's great. It has adequate space for the participation of civil society and local community actors. And yet, we have taken too long to outdraw any national action plans that allows us to practicalize them. And the risk is that we risk being overwhelmed with security, because any single incident of terrorism happening on our soil has a tendency to undo everything and immobilize all of us in terms of living a normal life. And that is a huge security threat we are looking at. And on the basis of that, we should have been acting with a sense of agency or emergency from the state's perspective. Ensure that we rope in all actors, including you, the media, who would help project the measures we put in place. See something, say something came in, and just probably 4 weeks, 6 weeks after that, we seem to have, forgotten that there was a threat we're seeking to deal with. And that everything seemed to have gone back to normal conversation.
And that is precisely because we don't have that national action plan, because there's no plan. Because when there was COVID and there were clear instructions on what was expected at mass gatherings and all of that, by and large, people complied. With this one, we don't have a plan. So everybody, it's free for all. Everyone is doing what they please.
Sure. And I think that we need to find ways to, get the state to act in line with this threat. Because the more we talk about it this way without action, the more or the higher the chances that we get fatigue. We're talking about terrorism and the threat of terrorism to this space. And I think that the media can do a great job by highlighting these issues, not intended to cause alarm or panic, but creating or highlighting the issues intended to get the state to act and get all actors to be involved. That way, we can ensure that we build resilience against the threat.
So just how close, how grave is the threat? Let me just read two short paragraphs from pages 9 and 10 of that latest report from the Konrad Adenauer Stiftung Foundation. And I would have both of you react to this. It talks about the gray economy, the engine of progress for jihadist groups. And it says, however, as in Ghana and neighboring countries, there is no clear dividing line between the jihadist and criminal worlds in Togo, but rather a continuous interweaving of spheres of activity and zones of influence where certain nodes, such as commercial crossroads or natural parks, are always likely to encourage the establishment of clandestine cells. This is particularly true for the town of Sinkase and other localities bordering Ghana up to Boku. I'm reading from the last paragraph of page 9 and the start of page 10, which could attract the covetousness of armed groups, particularly the JNIM-GSIM, which is firmly established in eastern Burkina Faso, separated from the town of the same name in Burkina Faso by a single bridge. Sinkase is a major hub for illegal trafficking in the sub-region, stretching from northern Ghana to Benin. Its position as a border crossroad makes it a transit point for small arms and drugs to and from Burkina Faso. So I want us to weave in the aspect of arms proliferation and the fact that these cells, it's such a free flow, because like we talk about the gray economy, just as applies in Togo, it applies pretty much in Ghana as well. Fluidity between, the jihadist and criminal worlds, and with arms in the mix, it's just a toxic cocktail, isn't it? I would have you react to it first, Mumuni, before I go to Adib.
Well, the issues you highlighted in there, it's not new to our state security actors and people who work in this area. If you look at the eastern north corridor of our country, it is a largely ungoverned space along many of the borders. We've known for a very long time the criminal networks around smuggling and small arms proliferations. And it is not a surprise that you would see the feature of that in many of the conflicts, especially the Boko conflict and the pervasive use of small arms and even increasingly complicated weapons in that conflict. This is not new to national security, but I have not been able to establish the reality of the fact that the quality or the character of the criminal networks and jihadists or terrorist groups in Togo and Burkina Faso are the same as those we have in the eastern north corridor of Ghana. I haven't seen that similarity. The reality of what I see is the, existence of criminal networks that involves elements from outside of the border and those of Burkina Faso, Benin, and Togo, and even beyond. The quality of what they do is significantly different in terms of the production of violence or the intentions for who. What we need to do.
Hello, Mukhtar?
Hello?
Yes, please go ahead. I lost you for a moment.
What we need to do is to rein in the role of actors that are supposed to sanitize that part and police that part to ensure that we prevent that from escalating or serving as a conveyor belt to terrorist violence in that space. We've seen how in the last few years, the Small Arms and Light Weapons Commission role has been called into action. We need to retool it to ensure that it is present and effective across all parts of the country. At the moment, we have seen there has been attempts at reforming the Small Arms and Light Weapons Commission to ensure that it either becomes an authority or clothed with some level of powers adequate enough to act not just with information or research, but act in helping prevent these things from escalating to levels of insecurity for us.
Right. Let me say a very good morning. Because I said I would go to Adib on this matter. Adib, maybe you could do about a minute for me, and then I'll go to Johnson Asante-Twum, Programs Manager with the Small Arms Commission. Mr. Asante-Twum, a very good morning to you, sir. Hello, Mr. Asante-Twum.
Hello, good morning.
Thank you for joining the conversation. Just hold for me for about a minute and a half. Let me bring in Adib on a crucial point that has been made. So, for you, Adib Sani, on the self-same subject, what is your take?
Well, we start to note that we don't have an arms regulator in Ghana. Can you believe this? 21st century Ghana.
The police service is playing the role, though it is not mandated to do so. It's in a way trying to play the role.
And it can't play that role. For example, under the 1972 Arms and Ammunition Act, the IGP is supposed to have a central register of all weapons. Fine. Perhaps the 1.25 million Ghanaians who own weapons have our details with the IGP. But let's not forget that in 2020, out of all the 1.25, only about 40,000 renewed their licenses. So what happened to the rest?
Right.
How come they followed up? But if we had a regulator, they would follow up, because you have all the details, you have their names, you have their pictures, their addresses, next of kins, okay, to follow up. Unfortunately, that is not exactly what we see. And you see, Sankansi, if you are from the north, and Mutar is from the north, it's a very, very common town to every northerner. Because I remember my first generator I bought it from Sankansi. A lot of the motorbikes you see around being driven in the north are from Sankansi. It is recently some businessmen decided to bring it from China. But you see, it's a melting pot of activities. A lot of businesses happen there. And these terrorists are taking advantage. And there are a lot of other smuggling routes. So you see, there's a thin line between the criminal elements and the terrorists, as has been established in the report. So they take advantage of the porous nature of these borders, the fact that we have immigration officials who are there and don't even have weapons. When I said this, they came out to say, no, it's not true. Just yesterday, we started supplying them the weapons.
So we even have the challenge of immigration officers without weapons. So if anything were to happen, they would be sitting ducks. They would be able to do nothing.
Absolutely. And it's yesterday they started supplying them the weapons. And at a border area, of all the weapons they supplied them, 90, the ammunition they supplied them, 90 was for the rifle. They gave them 4 rifles, but gave them 90 rounds of ammunition and about 60 rounds of ammunition for the pistol. So how would you be able to confront any threat? Even the smugglers, you can't confront them with 90 rounds of ammunition. How much more a terrorist organization? So we need to be realistic. I mean, we need to take this issue much more seriously than
just wrap on that point, because it's so important. Basically, we're playing with this, because if 90 rounds, if terrorists are coming, staging any onslaught on any community, definitely 90 rounds multiplied by whichever number of officers are available, even if 20 or 50, will not be able to stand them. So while we are talking up a storm about the terrorist threat, on the ground, we're simply not doing enough. That's basically what you're saying.
Absolutely. We are not doing enough. And the boys there, the officers there are angry. They are not happy about what is going on. When I spoke about this issue, they came out to counteract it. No, it's not true. It can never be true. And according to them, they have the weapons. And I asked the question, has the weapons reached the officers on the ground? That was a question nobody was able to answer. Okay, so if you have the guns and they are not gotten to their destination, you've achieved nothing. So I'm sure that it is based on my analysis the last time. That is why finally they decided to get these weapons to them. What if I had not spoken about it? So why do we have to wait until the media picks up an issue before we see it too? It doesn't.
This matter you've raised has really left me wondering about our seriousness, and maybe we have to reach out to Ghana Immigration to find out whether all of this is true. Of course, leadership I don't know whether there will be admissions. But let me bring in Johnson Asante-Twum, Programs Manager with the Small Arms Commission. Thank you for your patience. You could react to some of what has been said, like the fact that even some of our officers manning our borders don't have the requisite ammunition. They are not armed. So if there were any terrorist threat where they find themselves, it would be a slaughter, basically, and the rest of us as a people would be at risk. But I want you to also look at the end of the Small Arms Commission. You've embarked on some programs up north. What exactly have you been up to? What has the integration been like with the security forces? What have the gains been? Do we have Mr. Asante-Twum? Mr. Johnson Asante-Twum, are you still with us?
Hello.
Yes, Mr. Asante-Twum. Did you get the question?
Yes, I heard you.
Okay, please go ahead then.
Right. Yes, so I was just saying good morning to your viewers and also to Adib and Mukhtar, both my very good friends. Thank you for having me. Now, my reaction to all that have been said, I think that they are in the right direction. Just a little bit of caution also that sometimes we should be a bit cautious in giving out a lot of the details because of the very people we seems to circumvent and, protect our people from a lot of the details we give, may be available to them. And so some of the issues we probably could talk about it backstage, albeit trying to advocate, for more support for the security agencies. And I say this particularly with reference to the number of ammunition given to immigration and others. I think that Adib has the best of intentions for the security of this country, and we should support him in that cause. That would be my preliminary reaction. I also think that we need to have a bit more civil responsibility in terms of the citizenry around us and around the border communities in getting them, to stay alert and to be able to provide the necessary information at the right time to the right, sources. And this is something that we need to intensify. The See Something, Say Something campaign has been launched, but we still need to, enhance and intensify it and make sure that the people the message get down to the people who really matter and those who will be the eye and the ear of the security services. You know that the people are everywhere, but the security agencies, cannot be everywhere. And in these matters, we have to rely on the larger population and the vigilance of the citizens to be able to deal with it.
Thank you for that initial comment. Do stay with me because there's a lot more I want you to help us look at. But let me bring in Mukhtar. So here's how we're going to manage this. We're going to speak to a number of people, but we don't want to keep all of you on for too long. So Mukhtar, I'll come to you for your summary comments about moving forward. What the plan is, what you would like to see, let's say in the next fortnight, in the next days, in the next month or so, to show some real pep in terms of our fight against terrorists. Because like has been mentioned by Adib Sani, we appear to be joking with officials who are not even armed. Your comments on that, and then we can call it a morning.
Well, many of these things we'll be talking about, we tend to repeat because they continue to be persistent problems and problems that we should not labor on for too long. Being armed and dealing with this threat, it is not a question of whether they should be armed or not. We need to provide adequate logistics to ensure that our men are confident and safe in doing what they're doing. That is not something we have to turn into another kind of activism for the state to respond to. These are things that should naturally be part of how we deal with the threat. An important point I want to make is that the launch of the See Something, Say Something campaign appeared great, and yet we lack sustainable efforts to ensure that it goes down to local communities, we localize it, we all embrace it, and ensure that it leads to the goal for which it was launched. Yet we haven't seen that. The second point is that we have huge infrastructure, local infrastructure and resource that we should effectively utilize in dealing with the threat. We did not wait for a foreign organization to come and point to us what the reality of the threat in our country. You've launched a campaign that says, see something, say something. What are they seeing and what should they be saying? What should they be seeing? We don't have that content. People don't know what to look out for when you're looking at vulnerabilities or signs of threats. We don't have that. And that in itself is undermining of the efforts we put into dealing with the threat. I know very well that the national security especially, there's a counterterrorism unit with very, very great ideas. I know that the national security, they have a good understanding, a good picture of what the threat is. Very great guys. What we're lacking is either the resources or the commitment to ensure that timely delivery of action is important, to ensure that it's done. It is too slow. The process is too slow. The process is inadequate. We need to rein in and keep ensuring that we put that sense of urgency to get them to act and act quickly in the months coming up.
Okie doke. And that is your roadmap, Mukhtar Mumuni Mukhtar, Executive Director, West Africa Center for Counter-Extremism. Mukhtar, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for joining us. We'll stay with Adib Sani and Johnson Asante-Twum, and we'll bring in another speaker shortly, another guest. But coming back to Johnson, so looking at the situation, I don't know about what your experience has been going along the northern belt, especially because that's where the threat seems to be focused. We're told mining communities, especially up north, are being targeted. And then you look at certain areas, you look at the Savannah region and its borders with Burkina Faso and other parts of our neighboring countries, and you see that we face quite a threat. Again, going back to the issue of arms, we have the Boko situation still simmering and others. How is the Small Arms Commission feeding into, dealing with the arms situation up north?
Very much for the question. And I must say that I couldn't have agreed with Mukhtar even better in terms of the issue of content of See Something, Say Something campaign. I think that it is something that needs to be enhanced, as I mentioned earlier. Now, coming back to your actual question, it is in line with this that the Commission is establishing its presence in some border communities. And as we speak now,
which border communities? Which ones specifically?
Okay, we have started with PAGA and containerized off with the security agencies in dealing with these threats and these matters that seems to be simmering and that seems to be coming up. So that is, the step that the Commission is taking in dealing with the issues. But
so for now, it is just PAGA.
PAGA and Elubo.
PAGA and Elubo.
And others will be rolled out, yes. And then port also for some other reasons in terms of that come through the port as well. So, but we are also concerned about the issues with the northern stretch, particularly in the places where you mentioned. Of course, everybody knows about Boko, but if you stretch it to places in the savannah, between savannah and the Bono East, in an area called Dollar Power, it becomes an even more worrying situation because that seems to be a no man's land between Ghana and Cote d'Ivoire, and there is a thriving mining business going on there, which feed into the illicit importation and flow of improvised explosive devices or commercial mining explosives, which are used in the mining industry, but of course in the illegal mining settings. And that is a source of worry, as to who can lay hand on any of these explosives. The last time I spoke to you, I mentioned the issue of IEDs, improvised explosive devices,
right,
and how people, could use that to cause mayhem. And so that is one of the issues we have flagged and has, relayed it to those who matter in terms of dealing with this when it comes to the hardcore issues. So these are issues that we deal with on a daily basis, and we are very much concerned about.
Okay, Mr. Asante Chum, just hold for me. I'm going to wrap with Adib Sani shortly, but let me welcome aboard Professor Kwesi Enning of the Kofi Annan Peacekeeping Training Center. Prof, a very good morning to you.
Well, good morning.
Thank you so much for joining the conversation. Just hold for me for about a minute and a half, Prof. Let me bring in Adib Sani for his summary comments. So, Adib, we've spoken about a number of issues, and you have harped on the National Action Plan. What would you like to see in the next few days, the next few weeks, and maybe the next few months in terms of a plan proper in dealing with the terrorist scourge?
Okay, so a special mention to Professor Enning, by the way. So Ghana was awoken to the threat in 2016 when the Grand Bassam was attacked. And our national, intelligence agencies mentioned that after Burkina Faso and Ivory Coast, the next likely targets would be Togo and Ghana. Now we have it. Togo has been attacked, and so we need to be proactive. See something, say something is a great initiative, even though it should have come earlier. However, we seem not to be giving it the attention it deserves. I was thinking that immediately government would bring together civil society organizations, NGOs that are on the ground and are already engaging the communities and are doing a lot of work. But it seems we have constricted it to social media infographics. So when we do that, we wouldn't really be able to achieve the desired targets. I don't know whether the government has reached out to the media as the fourth estate, and considering the important role you could have also played in that regard, you need to be sensitized, you need to be educated, and you should be made an integral part of the whole see something, say something agenda. And to what extent have we been able to extend this to the border communities? I mean, Gwolu, Paga, Hamile, and the rest. So they are conscious, they are alert, they know what is going on when individuals come into their communities and are looking for accommodation to rent. I mean, have we educated them enough to ask questions rather than just accept the money and integrate these people into their communities? I think we need a lot more work to be done on the see something, say something. And my final word is, we cannot achieve, we wouldn't be able to regulate holistically the proliferation of small arms and light weapons if Small Arms Commission is not made a regulator. If Small Arms Commission continues to be an advisory body, trust me, it's going to complicate our efforts towards regulating the arms space in Ghana.
All right.
And so I would this opportunity to appeal to government to show all the goodwill, the political will to ensure that the Small Arms Commission is made a regulator if really we are committed to regulating arms space.
Adib Sani, thank you so much for joining the conversation, for enriching it as you have. Professor Enning, thank you so much for holding for us. Adib Sani makes quite an assertion when he suggests that, I mean, he's been talking about the fact that our security officials, immigration and others, a lot of them are not even armed at our borders. And that it's only, in fact, he says only yesterday that some immigration officers got, ammunition with about 90 rounds. And he questions ammunition, automatic rifles, 90 rounds. What would that mean if terrorists were to hit any, of our bordering outlets, from Paga to other places? The Savannah region is exposed, and we've been talking about, we have a chart that points to the insurgency from the northwestern part of Benin, funneling into the northern belt of Togo and then spilling over into the northeastern belt of Ghana, as well as capturing some southern parts of Burkina Faso. You look at the trajectory between the 9th of November 2021, 11th May 2022, 14th and 15th July 2022, 15th June 2022, and the latest one that got very close to us, that aircraft which accidentally targeted and killed 7 teenagers in Magba in Togo, just the 9th and 10th of July 2022. What picture does that paint for you about our readiness to deal with the terrorist situation? Hello, Prof.
Hello, can you hear me?
I can hear you now. Please go ahead.
Good. It paints the picture that I certainly have painted the last 15 years, in which my younger brother, Adib, and Mr. Johnson, being a government official, have so eloquently spoken about. The picture on the canvas points to a couple of things. One, that the rhetoric from Accra is fantastic. The operational, hands-on, logistical inputs into capacitating those at the front lines and within the territory to be able to respond and to degrade is almost non-existent. Make my point very clear. In August, between July and September 2020, I traveled around every single border post in this country and wrote the United Nations report on conflict vulnerability in Ghana, focusing particularly on the 6 Northern region. That painted a dire picture of unpreparedness, of empty rhetoric, of a penchant for waxing lyrical and not placing the logistics in place. I went to Kulungugu, I went to Pusiga, I went to Paga, I went to Hamle, I was in Boko. Level of preparedness is zero.
Wow, the level of preparedness is zero.
Please let me finish. Wow. As part of that tapestry, I traveled around and wrote a major small arms paper that pinpointed using GPS location systems specific areas along borders from Kubo to Hamle, showing the tracks, the directional flows, once more lack of capacity to scan equipment. Part of that tapestry is that we've become a hub for small arms flows, some coming as far as DRC and Central African Republic, and certainly from La Côte d'Ivoire. So the narrative is fantastic. But we are a net exporter of the instruments and infrastructure for violence. So if you follow the sheer volumes of fertilizer that is smuggled out of Ghana, it raises particular concerns as to what this fact is. All this fertilizer is useful. Because fertilizer and particular types of fertilizer form critical ingredients in the IEDs that both Sammy and Johnson were talking about. Okay, but we don't seem to link fertilizer smuggling to feeding that infrastructure for violence. Not only that, if we understand the political economy of criminal networks around all our boundaries, I think Accra dollar power was mentioned. But that's actually a very tiny part of it. If you look at the role of Tinga, you look at the massive role of cattle rustling around the Benkwanta area, the thousands of armed young people of almost no particular identity and nationality who are all around this area, then it raises particular concerns about the narrative. But let me make this point clear. You see, for those who don't agree with me and get angry and seek to call me and say all kinds of things, it's a waste of time. Because the evidence is very clear that the attacks may not happen now because we are a net facilitator of what happens elsewhere. And in terms of the analysis and the calculus, it doesn't make sense when you can sell your cattle for money, you can mine for gold, you can get explosives and small arms to also hit the country that provides you with the means for violence. So part of our safety net is that the borders are non-existent and allows the free flow of weaponry, of explosives, of the component parts for IEDs. Because this report that I wrote on small arms focuses on the concerns of particular European countries about how IED parts found in Mali, Niger, northeastern Nigeria, sometimes have bearings and markings of explosives that have been purchased by this country.
Right.
Okay. So, I don't think we are going to be hit because it doesn't make strategic sense.
Did you just say you don't think we are going to be hit because it doesn't make strategic sense?
Yeah.
Is that what you said?
Because we facilitate the actions elsewhere. You see, so, if you get fertilizer being smuggled in thousands of tons, that becomes a critical ingredient for your IED.
Yes.
If you have the detonators, if you have the quartz coming. Go to Tudu, for example. If you want those who make boreholes. Look, this is not rocket science. My only worry is that when Sam Johnson, myself speak this way, then people think that we are exposing their incompetence and they get angry. But that is not it. As Ghanaians and as citizens who are worried also about our own future and seek to make an input into the national conversation, there must be a certain tolerance and acceptance of alternative interpretations being brought onto the table. So whilst I agree with my colleagues, my assessment right now is that because we facilitate, knowingly or unknowingly, the ability to perpetrate these actions elsewhere, then it doesn't make rational sense to also destroy the source of some of these equipment.
So for now, we've given the terrorists incentive not to attack us. But quickly, how do you react to the nomadic and migratory pastoral elements? Because we see them spread across the region, and in some way, whether in Togo or other places, they also feed into the jihadist element. Put that side by side with what the report says. The latest Konrad Adenauer Stiftung report on page 11. It makes mention of the fact that, like all countries in the sub-region, Ghanaian and Togolese societies are riven by persistent community tensions, fueled by economic and territorial inequalities and disparities in access to political space and decision-making, and it goes on and on. Structural problems in the sub-region, and it mentions quite a number of them. Economically, with what is happening across the sub-region, and especially in Ghana, inflation, fuel prices, the exchange rate, and everything else going on. As we speak now, there's someone who has been, posting time and again on our live Facebook feed, tell the president to pay NAPCO personnel. All of these filtering, simmering elements, how do they affect the discussion we're having?
I think it fertilizes the ground for recruitment, the discourses around sympathy, but it is a failure of governance that is resulting in a sense of victimhood, dispossession, and a sense of exclusion that creates this false impression in people that striking a blow against your own state is beneficial. But that is very weak and unnecessary. So I think we need a much more nuanced, informed, sensitive, inclusive forms of governance that listens and assuages the fears of minorities and excluded people. That way we can have this broader sense of community, of cohesion, and of building that resilience in which this empty sloganeering of see something, say something. What are we supposed to see? No, what are the contours of what we are supposed to see? What are we supposed to look out for?
That is the big question. What are we even supposed to look out for? But
until we move away from empty sloganeering to concrete, practical, hands-on, what do landlords need to look out for? What does Mame Abena, who sells wache, look out for?
So Prof, just hold for me, because I will be coming to you shortly, right after engaging Johnson Asante Twum.
My battery is running out. I have just about 10%.
Okay, then go ahead, because I wanted to wrap with you on the National Action Plan bit. The last time we spoke, we were talking about it.
Because you see, it is just high policy. Just like the National Security Strategy document. We need to ground it. What does the woman in the market who sells Gary, what she should be looking for? That Christian who normally bought just an olonka of Gary for 1 month, suddenly is buying 10 olonka. What has happened? This boy who used to buy beans, 10 cedis, suddenly is buying 100 cedis and is buying different types of dried beans. The woman who has the little corner shop in that day, suddenly they are asking for kerosene. They are asking for petrol. They are asking for this. Until we ground this empty rhetoric of see something within our localities where ordinary people will pick the critical intelligence and have the confidence to pass it on, that they will not be exposed, then it will remain what it is, empty sloganeering, fanciful on the outside, totally empty.
Thank you so much, Professor Enning, and we're grateful that you made the time to speak to us. That is Professor Kwesi Enning, who is with the Kofi Annan International Peacekeeping Training Center. I'll wrap with you, Johnson Asante Twum. Two quick things. So your summary comments on the conversation we've had, and then secondly, mention was made. It skips my mind whether it was Adib Sani or Mukhtar Mumuni Mukhtar. I think it was Adib who suggested that the Small Arms Commission ought to become the regulator, de facto regulator, and de jure as well. What is your thinking about that? Is that something you're willing to take up as a commission? Is this something you can do, that you have the capacity to do? Hello, Johnson.
Hello.
Yes, I can hear you now. Did you get the question?
Yes, I did.
Please go ahead.
And I was saying, yes, okay. So thank you to Prof. Enning for eloquently, hammering on the issues. The Small Arms Commission originally was supposed to have been set up as a regulator in the space. For some reason, in fact, the cabinet memo under His Excellency President John Akakpo that, gave the approval for the setting up of the commission, requested for the commission to be set up as a regulator. Somewhere along the line, something happened, and then the commission was set up as an advisory body. So this is how the commission was envisaged to have been, but then something else happened. So it is not about we being willing to take on. It is a must that we have a regulator in the space to be able to deal with the issues, that we are seeing now. And to deal with them effectively, you do not need an advisory body. You need a regulator with all the powers and authority of a regulator to stamp its feet on the matters and the issues that are rearing its head. The issues, mentioned earlier are multifaceted, and we need to look at it, from different dimensions. I told you about what we are doing in Elubu and Paga and also in Tema, but we are doing this in collaboration with our neighboring countries. such that we'll be able to fight this together and share information among ourselves. So under the auspices of UNDP and the German Foreign Federal Office, we have to do this with Cote d'Ivoire and also Burkina Faso, which means that wherever we select to set up these offices, there must be a corresponding office from a neighboring country to make sure that information flow, is swift and we are able to deal with the matters as quickly as they come, which is why these centers have been selected. So we will deal with them in that manner. And so we are also appealing to some of our neighboring states to come on board, because we cannot deal with this, as a country alone. It has to be a multi-pronged approach, and it has to be a cross-border issues, because we are dealing with a cross-border crime. You need to tackle it, with a cross-border mindset and a cross-border approach. I agree with Professor Enin when he says that we seem to have become a supplier of infrastructure and devices, to some criminal network unknowingly. But then we need to also put in place the measures. The only place that I seem to have a different opinion is the issues of attack, because as they push down, they see, these places as places of, resource routes that they can get, especially the Gulf of Guinea state of Ghana, Cote d'Ivoire, Togo, and Benin. And already Cote d'Ivoire and Togo have had their fair share of attack, which means that, Ghana is not immune to this attack, because as we keep on denying them access to those resources, the push will be harder, and then they will have no choice, but to hit and get access to the resources. But of course, something is being done, and the security forces are working, except that, as I said earlier, it has to be a shared responsibility with the communities. And there seems to be a concentration of information and authority at the top. And that is why I asked for, the enhancement of the See Something, Say Something campaign, so that it is driven down to the populace and to the people to know what they should see in the first place and what they should say and to who at what time. These are critical matters that we need to address, in the See Something, Say Something campaign as we enhance it going forward.
Johnson Asante Chum, thank you so much for engaging as Programs Manager with the Small Arms Commission. Very important point he makes at the end, that per the original role that was to be attached to the Small Arms Commission, they were supposed to be regulator. What happened in the mix? We heard from him. We also heard from Adib Sani, Executive Director, Center for Human Security and Peace Building, Mukhtar Mumuni Mukhtar, Executive Director, West Africa Center for Counter-Extremism, and Professor Kwesi Ening, of course, with the Kofi Annan International Peacekeeping Training Center. Up next, we're going to be talking about COLA, cost of living allowance, 15% accepted by government. But what are the latest dynamics, and when will labor unions see the impact of this? We also have an interaction with the Ghana Independent Broadcasters Association, all still to come as we engage you as well on the AM show. We'll be right back.